Remember the joy a simple Slinky brought to you as a child. The magic spiral that could walk downstairs and seem to defy gravity. But what if I told you that behind this iconic toy, a symbol of childhood wonder, lies a forgotten genius? Richard James, whose life unraveled almost as spectacularly as his invention. Today on Bad B-Roll, True Forgotten Geniuses, we uncoil the hidden story of the mind behind the Slinky. Can a single spring rewrite a destiny? Drop a comment if the Slinky played a part in your childhood memories. To understand Richard James, we must first return to an America gripped by war, ambition, and innovation. The 1940s. Born in 1914 in Philadelphia, Richard was the sort of child who dismantled clocks, peered into radios, and believed, above all, that science was magic waiting to be revealed. He attended Penn State, studying mechanical engineering, a field that was about to be thrust into global importance as America's war machine ramped up for World War II. James began his professional life in the midst of this turmoil, working as a naval engineer at the William Cramp & Sons shipyard. Machinery, gears, and springs surrounded him. It was a world of serious adult problems, stabilizing sensitive instruments on ships so the Allies could win at sea. But it was in this setting, rife with the tension of war and the challenge of invention, that destiny would begin to shape a playful miracle. Let us know in the comments if you've ever been inspired by a simple object. What everyday item would you love to know the invention story behind? Life in the 1940s was a mix of grey seriousness and boundless optimism. For engineers, the pressures were immense. Richard's assignment was critical. Find a way to keep delicate shipboard instruments steady in stormy seas. Each failed prototype added more pressure, not just from his superiors, but from a nation expecting victory. It was in this crucible of necessity that innovation tends to spark. But it wasn't just professional stress. Richard was balancing a young family. His wife, Betty, was the rock behind the scenes. Money was tight. The country was at war. He tussled with the same anxiety that haunts any dreamer. What if this is all for nothing? What if genius isn't enough? As he toiled late nights, the engineering world was evolving. The giants of invention, Edison, Tesla, cast long shadows. Richard was one man with a problem, some wire, and a hope for something more. One false move could cost not just his job, but his reputation, and that of his family. Have you ever faced a moment where one mistake could change your life? Put your story in the comments below. Then, in 1943, a happy accident offered Richard a key to immortality. He was experimenting with torsion springs, hunting for a way to keep naval equipment steady. One spring, knocked off his workbench, performed an extraordinary, sinuous tumble, almost as if it were alive. For a split second, the weight of war and responsibility evaporated, replaced by wonder. Richard rushed home to Betty, cradling the slinking spring like a treasure. They watched together as it seemed to walk down the stairs. The Jameses recognized the miracle before them. What if this was more than a component? What if it was a toy? Every great innovation needs more than genius. It needs a partner. Betty, practical and creative in equal measure, believed. She named it the Slinky and encouraged Richard to refine the design. Together, they remortgaged their home and produced 400 units, betting everything on holiday shoppers at Gimbel's department store in Philadelphia in 1945. The toy world had never seen anything like it. As crowds gathered and the first Slinkies strutted down a makeshift set of stairs, every single unit sold out in under 2 hours. Instantly, the Slinky was more than a spring, it was a phenomenon. Millions would soon understand what Richard and Betty saw that very first night. Pure, unpredictable fun, born from physics, Comment if you remember seeing a Slinky walk for the first time. Describe the feeling. But explosions of genius cast long aftershadows. At first, the Slinky made the James family wealthy and famous. Yet, behind the glitzy TV ads and swelling bank accounts, Richard James struggled. Not content to rest on his laurels, Richard became obsessed with religious ideas, convinced that his success was a sign from a higher power. As sales soared, he poured growing sums into questionable missionary work and religious movements in South America, ignoring Betty's pleas and the business's needs. His behavior slipped from visionary to erratic. He withdrew from day-to-day operations and took the family's fortune with him. In the early 1960s, Richard James vanished, leaving Betty, 6 children, and a company on the brink of ruin. It was Betty, not Richard, who fought to save the Slinky legacy, restructuring the debts, running the factory, and keeping their iconic toy alive for a new generation. Richard, meanwhile, spent his remaining years in a Bolivian religious commune, his name fast fading from the toy that had once made magic out of metal. Why do some geniuses become cautionary tales while others become legends? Should history forgive Richard's disappearance, or is his story a warning for all innovators? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Although Richard James faded from the spotlight, the slinking stride of his invention continues. Over 300 million Slinkies have sauntered into homes around the world. With every spiral that tumbles down a staircase, with every giggle and gasp, the legacy of Richard James is reborn, one of accidental genius, boundless curiosity, and human fallibility. But it's also a testament to the unsung heroes behind the scenes. Betty James, whose resilience shielded the Slinky from oblivion. The Slinky is more than a toy, it's a symbol of the magic that arises when creativity and tenacity coil together, then spring into the unexpected. Richard James reminds us, the greatest innovations can come from the least likely places, but are sustained only by those willing to fight for them. If you crave more forgotten tales of genius and the extraordinary twists of history, hit that follow. Let's keep honoring those who shaped our world and, sometimes tragically, slipped from its memory.